all right, we're going to finish this time. I promise. We said, okay, maybe we'll do it all in the first time and decided to split it into two. And then we spent 15 minutes per team last week. So we split it into three. We're finishing tonight. I don't care how long you guys take on all the NFC West teams. We're finishing because I can't keep doing this. We got to move on to end of season stuff, close out things, reminders for teams and players to be doing things before we roll over, stuff like that. So whatever happens, guys, let's keep it fun, but let's get it done tonight. What do you guys say?
Yeah, this is definitely slowing down our way too early rookie rankings, so we need to get through this.
And I feel like we've gone at least like 4 months since power ranking. So
Bill, you're muted.
Good call. Good call.
I mean, I did the same thing earlier. RJ was like, "Oh, I can't hear you. Let me rejoin." And it's like, "No, my microphone is muted." So
Now we got to get those rookie drafts going, those rookie mocks.
That's right, because we need to drum up more interest in early picks for you guys. Anyways, so we've got the NFC West and NFC North that we still have to do. So we'll just kind of start from the top here in the West. The Rams, again, won the division last year. A bit of a race down the stretch with the Cardinals, who faded near the end. But again, a lot of the pieces are here for the Rams. Granted, the level of competition wasn't extremely high, but definitely had enough to really make a push this year and finish strong. So a couple of highlights here. Stafford coming off the IR, was able to pick him up cheap near the end of the season. DeAndre Swift and Aaron Jones doing well. Jalen Waddle, good core at tight end. A little bit spotty on defense, but definitely one that by aggregation worked pretty well. And then definitely that shift of Christian Wilkins to defensive end was pretty huge for them. So again, a couple of strong pieces and a couple of I'd say fillers in the back end, but definitely some studs that if he wanted to try and move some things around, he's near the year's cap at this point. He could definitely move some things around, potentially acquire some picks or acquire a little bit more depth for next year. But I mean, based off the pieces that he has, I don't know if I'd do a ton, except maybe on defense. What do you guys think?
So the only things that I wrote down for Rams is I would entertain moving Huntley, depending on what you could get. That would be a reasonable one. Like if somebody's willing to pay even a decent price, like kind of get out of that contract and like leave the gamble to somebody else while you've already made something off of it.
I guess what would be a decent price in your opinion?
Whatever anybody's willing to pay.
I
If somebody's willing to saddle themselves with that contract, you accept it basically.
I might consider taking like a fourth for him at this point, like just because he is so hard to move.
I would not pay somebody. If I'm Rams, I would not pay to give him to somebody.
Oh no! I'm saying I would take a fourth for him.
Right.
No. So again, and he might be worth a fourth. Frankly, is who knows what happens with Lamar. I mean, he frankly made the Pro Bowl, which is completely absurd. The fact that they got so far down the AFC that he qualified. But he's a Pro Bowl quarterback who may be starting in Baltimore. I doubt it, but we've seen sillier things happen. Or, hey, maybe he's the veteran they bring into New York to compete with Zach Wilson. So
wasn't D'Amico Ryans one of the coaches in the Pro Bowl?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I mean,
I didn't watch. The only thing I saw about the Pro Bowl was Jalen Ramsey leveling Tyreek Hill and then Peyton freaking out at the end of the game.
Get to rub shoulders with a coach that needs a quarterback that has already openly said he's going to bring quarterbacks in.
That's not a starting quarterback over Davis Mills, is it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a competition, and I think they'd want to leave open the idea that they don't have to take a quarterback at 2, that they could either move down or do a different direction to try and drum up interest. But, I mean, all intents and purposes they're probably taking a quarterback. Mm-hmm. But, hey, you're right. It is a potential landing spot. This is going to be a crazy year for quarterback carousel, so who knows where these guys are going to be landing.
Yeah.
I'm a believer in Huntley. I think he's probably good enough to be a starting quarterback in the league if given the opportunity.
At least for a year, right? Like give him a full
He's
year, see what he does.
he's at worst he's going to be the Jacoby Brissett for the next 12 years.
Right.
Like the 33rd best quarterback in the league, and always like the best possible backup money could buy.
Sure.
That's his worst case, really?
I think so.
I
Maybe no. I think best case is better than that. Like I think he's the legit starter in the league.
No, I think when you say worst case, I could see him being that career backup. Kind of the 40 to 50 range, but kind of in the right offense too. So I don't know. What do you think, Bill? What would you say makes sense for Rams to do here?
I think he's actually kind of already in the process of doing it. I think moving off of Swift, not for cheap, obviously. Like he's still a valuable piece, but I mean, Rams doesn't have a ton of things to worry about. Like at least within the division, right? Like Seahawks is revamping still, and it's kind of luck of the draw between the other three. But Swift is a good piece. It's going to get him a solid return. Is he going to get the 110 or higher out of it? Probably not. But is it time to move off of Swift? Probably, at least in this format. And then I would say maybe look at the idea of getting rid of Nick Bolton, not because he's in a position where he has a strength or anything like that. Just Nick Bolton has a ton of value for a linebacker, and he might be a name that you could get somebody to overpay on.
Maybe.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Linebacker 1 in KC is just a valuable position. I don't care what the name is.
Never leaves the field.
Right. And again, it seems like it's a different name every year. And the person you expect it to be going into the year is not the person it is at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I kick the tires on is, I'm not going to suggest Waddle, even though I think that may make some sense based off the fact that the quarterback situation in Miami is a little muddled.
I was going to.
But again, I think that there's a potential there. Wilkins on back-to-back Pro Bowl seasons, the fact he has him locked up for 5 years, if he maintains that D-end status, that's a pretty solid piece to have if you wanted to try and break something down. The other piece that I was thinking about is Stafford. And again, it's not necessarily a move, it would be the right move. So he still should have good value in an offense that's run by Sean McVay. He was able to renegotiate him down to $7 million. I don't know how much longer he has, but Stafford at $7 million is one heck of a value. And from a per game standpoint last year, he was probably about 15 to 17. Not super numbers, but definitely room for upside. So, I'm probably going to toss him, either a second or a first, see if he's interested in moving him. And if he is, cool. If not, he's kind of his building point and risk against Huntley not being anything or trying to move Huntley instead. Understood. But again, I think it's one of those where it's worth kicking the tire to see, does it make sense of moving him as part of a deal to upgrade at the position? Is he a good fallback option saying, hey, I've got a good value, good average, I can spend money on other positions? Or is he a movable piece that he wants to try and acquire picks from? So I think he'd be an interesting thing to see what he can fetch on the market.
Yeah, didn't he just acquire him?
I think so. I can't remember if it was during the season or right after.
Right. Yeah. So it would be interesting to see if he would be open to doing such a quick turnaround. Rams is normally like the guy that you can count on to make a move and then just stick with it for at least the season.
What player are we talking about? Sorry,
Stafford.
Okay. Sorry, I zoned out. I was sending an offer for Huntley.
It's okay.
That tends to happen with these podcasts, that we start sending offers ourselves and we end up making a good number of the deals. So we're our own worst enemies. But I guess the nice thing about some of our current situations is we can't do a whole lot. That's the last.
The one thing I would comment, Mike, I know you had mentioned it and said you weren't going to say it, but breaking down Waddle, if you could turn it into 2 perceived wide receiver ones, I don't know if anybody's really willing to pay that price, but Like, I think that's a compensation you consider.
I bet you could get a top 10 pick this year for him.
You probably
Easily.
don't do that. You want multiple productive assets if you're trading away
No,
one.
I mean, like he could easily get into that range, and then
Mm.
still add to it probably. Waddle's a stud.
Yeah, you need another wide receiver that's good plus something else that's productive.
Yeah.
I don't.
His thing is he's going to have to be willing to take on the cap hit that comes with that because like anybody that fits in that mold is not a rookie receiver. Like he's not going to get Jameson and Garrett Wilson, for example. He's not going to get like Jameson and 107, right? Like
No.
he's going to have to go with like.
But could you go to Tampa Bay and get Michael Pittman and Juju and something else?
I would hope so. I mean, but the problem is Tampa's competitive. If you can find a team that's tanking that wants to get rid of assets,
Why wouldn't Tampa consider that?
Because he just won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but he could have T. Higgins and Jalen Waddle on his team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's worth considering. I don't know that it happens, but I like the concept.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. If you are considering moving Waddle, that's the type of compensation. I don't know if anybody's willing to play ball on something like that, but that's the type of return you need.
Right. So Stafford he may end up holding a little bit more on because it looks like he gave up Javonte and a couple of other decent pieces to get him. So him and Hayden Hurst. So you may want to hang on to him a little bit longer, let his value recover a little bit. But again, it would be interesting to see what his price would be on him. Anyways, let's move on to the Niners. I'll do this one, and then I'll let you guys fight over the last two in the division to start. So Niners have an interesting collection of offensive talent. It's sort of the unfortunate curse of whoever the Niners took. Seems like they're probably going to bust. The quarterback of Mariota, everyone knew that was kind of a 1 year at best situation. He's probably a career backup at this point and likely to be cut by the Niners. Bunch of receivers who were destined for great things, but have definitely fallen short, either due to injury or due to other challenges. If you could reinvest those and maybe pick a different player with some of those or sell when the rookie hype was there, I think you'd have a much different looking team. Wasn't able to capitalize on a very strong tight end room. Fortunately, Fant looks like he's going to be part of a committee in Seattle. But his defense is pretty solid. Zach Allen and Malik Collins, good values for good production at D tackle. Hubbard at less than $6 million, a gem. Aiden locked in at just about $3 million for the next 4 years is pretty fantastic too. And then Queen and Smith at linebacker. So again, Jalen's not the player he once was, but he's still productive. So some great options on defense. Offense is a little bit tougher. In terms of a player I'd be thinking about moving, if I could capitalize on the name value of Patrick Queen, I probably would, since he's about to get expensive, and with Roquan getting signed there long term, his role could continue to evolve. It performed well when both were on the field together, but he may continue to see his role diminish depending on how that defense continues to evolve. And they tend to usually grab a linebacker on day 1 or 2 almost on a regular basis. So seems like a good sell point. And then, I don't know, maybe either Gallup or a DPJ or something like that, sell high on a cost-controlled wide receiver, see what the market's willing to bear there. So a little bit of exploratory stuff.
Yeah, I in like a weird way, I think the piece that you hold on to in the offense is Daniel Bellinger, and you just let that grow. Like his value is going to grow.
Who?
the tight end of the Giants tight end.
I know.
Fair enough.
Terrible. Why would you hang on to that guy?
And like that's exactly what I mean. His value is like who? It's just going to keep going and going and going. Is he going to get to like the heights of the top end? I don't know, but it's going to keep growing from what it is. He has a great defense to work with. I think an interesting move would be to see what you can get for Nico Collins. If I understand it correctly, he is still under contract in Houston. With a new quarterback coming in and his production with Davis Mills and then the rotation that they had, not terrible. And you could sell the hype potentially. So I think that's an option. And Gallup is just like, are you going to sell a $12 million receiver with mediocre production more than stellar production? But you got to find a quarterback regardless. You got to find one.
I almost wonder if Jarek's the move. And again, I know where he went, so I'll stop before I take everything from RJ here. But CEH just got activated for the Super Bowl. Everyone, I think, is kind of saying he's done there based off what Jarek's done. So there's a question of, is Jarek your guy there that you want to own, especially in a best ball league? And considering he's already been extended, he has a base of about $3 million. So potential key pass game piece of the Kansas City offense, especially if it's something that you could potentially see locking in long term.
He was the number one scoring running back through the fantasy playoffs this year.
Yeah. So you sell that. I mean, coming off IR, I doubt CEH has a huge role in this game. But you can sell this going into the offseason and say, hey, this guy's trash. This is the running back you want to buy. Granted, I think it's going to be a committee there at best. But, considering his production, a first isn't out of the question.
No, I think if he re-signs in Kansas City, he's got incredible value.
Right.
I'm sorry, he was number 2.
How dare you?
So Gallup was already mentioned. I would like to see Gallup get moved. I don't know what people would pay for him. I really don't know what he's worth at this point, but I'm sure somebody would buy him. And I think this is the right time to get away from him while he's worth something. The only other thing that I would suggest is how much could you get for Sam Hubbard? Because he's not the guy in Cincinnati anymore. That's Trey Hendrickson. So his production's not down. I mean, he's still great production for what his value is, but I would be intrigued to see how much you could get for him. You probably get a good young defensive end plus.
Or go for a pick. Like I said, he's probably in that first range for me where late first, early second is probably absolutely worth it for him.
Yep.
We talk about it all the time. I wonder if Hubbard plus a little bit, maybe Hubbard plus a Gallup would be enough to get the Cowboys to move off of Parsons. Who knows? Who knows what that guy's going to do? But it's just an idea.
I do love how Parsons comes up in just about every idea. Is maybe it'll be enough to get Watt. Maybe it'll be enough to get Parsons. Like
clearly,
it's never going to happen.
We want
the
pieces in rotation
just because of one of these.
We want what we can't have, Mike.
I understand, but still, I feel like the suggestion every time, and I get it. I mean, they're valuable pieces, but who knows? Maybe we'll make it happen one of these days. Maybe just enough ideas and enough hope and prayer.
So is the move here is the best move here probably to take 116 and whatever else and try to move up in the draft to get a rookie QB? Like, is that really his best option here?
Probably.
I think so, because it's not like
Or-
he has like a single piece he could break down to like really build this team up.
Sam Hubbard, man.
You said
Mike
that.
just said he's a first or early second. That's not enough.
Yeah, he'd probably have to do a good bit of selling to try and get enough late pieces and then hit on a lot of those.
I mean, like maybe like during the draft, right? Like Texans at 105, maybe there's a quarterback left. One of, maybe Levis is left. And he could offer him like Gallup plus his 116 plus like Patrick Queen.
Yeah. So again, but the problem is he gets cool. I got a quarterback. Now what?
Yeah.
It's especially if you're giving up two really productive pieces. Now,
Yeah.
From a cap perspective, he is at 15 million right now with 13
5
years
million.
left. So yeah, he can activate basically everybody with no issue. I don't know. He's a tough one. He's in kind of the NBA version of purgatory, where you're good enough to be in the play-in conversation, but you're not bad enough to be in the early draft conversation. So it's like, okay, I'm not bad enough to get good enough players to get better, but I'm not good enough to actually do anything in playoffs other than in the play-in game or an early exit. So what do you do?
That's just as bad in Dynasty. You never want to be mediocre.
All right, who wants to talk about the Cardinals?
I'll talk about the Cardinals. So let me get this pulled up here. So Cardinals, I thought made like the best investment to go for it last year by getting Justin Jefferson. Like I really thought that he was going to do it, and he did it for like a week or two. He had the lead in the division, and then it just fell apart. So I don't really know what he has. Like he doesn't have a lot to worry about here. I guess if rumors are true, Gerald Everett may not be as productive on a different team, but I mean, Justin Jefferson's a pretty solid piece to build off of. Then you have Kenneth Walker and Jeff Wilson and Burrow. Like the offense is solid. The defense could use some real work here. BJ Hill and Lawrence Guy are his main names here. It's going to be a tough rebuild on the defense, but I don't know that it's that difficult either, right? Like it's not that hard to build defensive assets. But I would love to see him. Let me see here. I would love to see him take advantage of Alexander Mattison and do whatever he needs to do, like timing wise, like wait for an announcement about Dalvin Cook getting moved, or does Madison have a new home, and maybe work off of that and try to break it down for another pick or a couple picks, or build out your defense that way. I mean, everybody loves Kenneth Walker, but nobody's going to pay what they want, but what he's going to want for him. Same thing with Justin. Maybe you can find someone who believes in Mooney, but I think the move here might be Alexander Mattison.
I mean, Mattison, he might get you like a linebacker. Like no one's, unless he lands, like a starting role.
That's what I mean by you might have to wait for the right timing.
Yeah. I mean, he's got his core, right? He's got Burrow, he's got Walker, he's got Jefferson, and Mooney, I think is a great, I mean, at his price, like Mooney's great at the wide receiver position. But I agree. His defense is lacking, and he's got some bloated contracts there that he has to wait out. Landon Collins at $9 million for 2 more years after this season, like that's pretty gross. That would probably be a renegotiation candidate if he hasn't already used it. Although then you have to have Landon Collins at $5 million for 4 more years, which is not good either. So like, it would be interesting if he could shed some of these contracts. He also has no picks in 23, but he does have about $50 million cap space. I mean, once Gronk is gone, it'll be more, right? No, is that the wrong team? That was the other team.
You're looking at the wrong team.
Yeah, that was 49ers. But
He doesn't have any
I don't-
major contracts falling off.
No, he doesn't, but he's got about 54 million in cap once we go over, and then the Hooper and Landon Collins contract becomes 2 years. That becomes pretty easy to just cut and eat, and that gets you up into the 60s.
Yeah,
And
well, you
just build out a defense, probably hold on to everything else, and if you really have to, move those future twos to find another wide receiver.
You can't build out a defense in one off season from free agency.
Not from free agency, but you have to trade.
Sure, but like if the move is he's got 60 plus million in space, he can build one in free agency. Like he can't. So like who can he break down to actually build out a defense? I don't know. I mean, Madison landing at like a starting role or RBBC where he's going to be getting at least like 10 touches a game. Like sure, he could be pretty valuable at his price, but
I mean, I'd almost go the opposite direction. I want to see if I can consolidate some things here. Like, he's got to build out a defense. I think we all agree on that. He's got all 100 of his years accounted for right now. So rolled over, he's going to get 34 more years. You look at what rolls off his team, he loses 1, 2, 3 contracts. So some of the contracts are bad, I agree, but he's going to have cap space, and he's going to have 9 spots to try and fill out probably backup quarterback and then a lot of defensive depth there. So if I could find a way to consolidate a couple of the intriguing pieces, like Jacob Phillips on that contract, may not be as valuable as some think he is, but again, could end up being a really productive linebacker for Cleveland. You take him and maybe, a couple other pieces and get yourself a higher end defender. Like maybe it's a Sam Hubbard or something like that you take Phillips and I don't know.
And
you pull 2 or 3 guys together, and it gets you a higher end defender. And at the same time, it gets you some years back and gets you a couple more positions so you can take some shots on some of those defensive players. And you go more of a defense by committee rather than studs and duds.
Yeah. I just wish I liked a single one of his defensive ends.
I think it really just comes down to winning that division. Is it really hard? I think he could do it if he just makes the right signings in the offseason on defense.
Right. No one's really super deep. So completely doable.
Especially when you have the offensive studs of Jefferson and Burrow and Kenneth Walker. And whatever happens with Wilson, Warren, and Madison, there's a lot to like there for that division and competing.
The other thing that he may want to be thinking about here is Burrow is going to be due a giant payday. Jefferson's going to be due a giant payday, not necessarily because of spot, but if he, he's going to be on Pro Bowl all of next year, and if he somehow makes it a third time, that's going to be expensive. So he's going to have to lock up a good amount of money between Burrow and Jefferson next year if he wants to try and extend them, especially post the season. So definitely a challenge to keep an eye on for him.
Yeah.
If I were him, I would sell off everything but the 3 or 4 really good pieces. Prepare to pay Burrow and Jefferson.
Yep.
And use whatever I receive back from tearing everything down to slowly buy young assets that are gonna improve this year, and then position myself to make some picks next year, or send off those picks to make another run. But I would basically take a year off. I think Kenneth Walker's sure, you don't want to. You really don't want to waste a running back's youth like that, but you can take 1 year off. And
but he doesn't have his first.
Yeah, part of me wonders if he should wait until after next season, whenever he actually has to pay Burrow and Jefferson.
Well, at that point, then you're probably selling off Walker, and if that is going to be the case, you might as well sell Walker off this year while he's worth the most.
Right. Yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, you're looking at $60 million between those two.
Yep. It's one of those weird situations where you could go either way, but you have to think more than a year out.
Yeah.
like in that scenario, and then it just becomes a mess.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
Alright.
even if he did like sell everything down and just had a bunch of, free agency acquisitions and whatever, middle round picks that he gets in 23, he could still probably be competitive in the division. Like one wrong injury for Rams and
Yeah, you
Yeah,
break
that's really-
things down to a handful of seconds, maybe like 1 or 2 seconds, some thirds, some fourths, some fifths. You use some of those fourths and fifths to buy like expiring vets that are gonna like still keep you in the playoff race, and then you use some of the higher end picks to buy, guys that haven't popped yet.
Mhm.
Try to buy off young talent that, basically for their draft price.
Yeah.
All right. Who wants to talk about the Seahawks?
I can start with the Seahawks.
All right, Will.
So, I mean, his big trade this offseason, right? He's now got Bill's pick. So he's picking 2, and then I think his pick is 6. So he's looking at 2 top 6 assets. I'm assuming it's going to be a quarterback and the best of remaining running back or wide receiver. And I know he at least previously had mentioned about trading down from 6 to see if he could get some more depth pieces. But if you just look at his roster, insert rookie quarterback at number 2. Maybe Baker finds a home. He's got some quarterback points there. I mean, it's the Baker and Trubisky contracts are going to suck for a year. He's got Breece Hall coming back off injury. He's got, I think, some like decent depth wide receivers with Bell and Chenault, but it doesn't have a true number 1. So maybe that's the number 5 pick or 6 pick. Kyle Pitts, obviously, dynasty tight end, all-star darling. I kind of like the 2 defensive ends he has, but you'd like to see more there, obviously. And linebackers and going on down is whatever. But he's got a lot of draft assets to kind of fill out the roster. I mean, he's looking at this division, right? If Cardinals is going to break it down, and if the Rams are a little too top heavy in a year or two, like the Seahawks team might be the threat in that division. He's got a shit ton of second and third round picks. So like if he has a good draft, this roster could be pretty deep.
Yeah. He has 11 picks in the first 3 rounds, 9 between the second and third, and then he holds 2 top 6 assets. Very, very easy rebuild here if he does it well. He could trade these picks around. He could move these picks. He could use the picks. Whatever he wants to do. Those are his assets. Everything else here is not helping him really. Like Breece Hall and Kyle Pitts, I would hold and then get rid of everything else. but like that's probably his plan. He's waiting for rollover, waiting for contracts to toll, salaries to hit, and penalties to clear. And then if he decides to try and go for it, I wouldn't be surprised to see him, give, Baker and whatever else garbage that he has to a team, that's tanking to take the cap and free up space for him to go and do his thing.
See, I don't know. I would say, again, I would go the opposite direction, I think, of what he's trying to do right now. If he cuts Baker and Trubisky right now, he takes a $23 million hit this year, but that drops to probably about $12 million next year versus the 46 that's on his cap right now. If he tries to move them, he's probably going to have to move a pick to go with it. Now, granted, the rate the cap is going for right now probably wouldn't be a terrible thing to do to go that way, but $12 million based off of where he's going to be from a cap perspective is not an awful thing. And then to your point, Bill, he's got 2 top assets this year, and he's trying to, I think, break those down and move towards 24. He's got 2 of those assets. He can pull in and grab a quarterback, grab a receiver, have things go the right way here, and really hit the defense hard, or exchange that for some of the things. I'd be looking to move some of those assets to make a run at the division. You can clear the cap to take on some of these contracts people may not want. Everyone's going to go pick crazy here in the next, if they haven't already. So, use those, use the 23s, hang on to your 24s in case things go sideways. But go buy yourself a team right now and compete because, like we said, this isn't the hardest division to go in. I must have put everybody to sleep. Excellent.
I was like, is somebody on mute?
I'm just thinking he that's a lot of picks. It's a lot of contract years for this year.
He's going to have 48 contract years in the offseason with 11 picks. So he would technically be able to make all his picks and still have 4 years left over.
Yeah.
So he's going to consolidate and move some of those. You can tell.
Oh, yeah. But he really needs to hit on a lot because there's not much on that team.
Sure.
There's a lot of people that you would like and you would like to see do stuff, but realistically, Laviska is the first round pick. Next year you have to decide on his 5th year option. Like, that's not sexy to have at all. David Bell didn't do much. He didn't get to play much. At least he'll have a better QB next year. And then just what we saw, the Jets backfield. Brees 1 week might score 12, the next he might score 30. And it might be because his teammate scored 30. So that damages the value there.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. He gets like 10 targets a week. I like him.
And that just becomes
what he does.
And that just becomes, Kyle Pitts. He's darling, yeah, but it's 2 years in. Guy's got like 5 touchdowns and he's 6'6", and they don't. He's not bad at all. It's like I love him, like prospect wise. It's just fantasy wise, just realistically that this team has a lot more to go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, historically, that position is very slow to start. Unicorns obviously are not an exception.
Well, part of it's too just been the QB play in Atlanta since he's been there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Abysmal. So, you'd expect him to start showing out as soon as essentially they get someone in there. But who knows if they'll get that done.
No, that's fair. Again, I like to think of zigging when everyone else is zagging. So I think it's interesting that he's saying, let me build the 24, even though I feel like there's teams already trying to do that, especially those with picks. And it's like, okay, I'm trying to buy 24 picks cheap instead of, using 23 picks. You're going to have the buyers coming with players soon. So it's almost like, what's the inefficient market at the moment? And I'd say that's more players than picks. But again, everyone's got their own approach to this.
You'd honestly, if you're him, your dream is 102. You get the QB you wanted, and you just hope Bijan goes 1, so you do get your pick of whoever you want it to. And then you'd sit at 6, and someone would offer you like their future first and a decent kind of contract wide receiver for 6, who isn't old as hell.
Yeah, but we don't know if he's going to try and build. Right, like he might just sit on everything and just at draft time just push everything next year. Don't know why he would do that. He might do it, but we don't know. I think free agency is going to say a lot about what he does.
Someone who doesn't have any draft picks in this year's class. All you have to do is tell everybody that next year's class is going to be way better, guys, or it's going to be way crappier.
Everybody says that.
You get with those draft picks, Justin Herbert. Just saying.
Oh my God.
I don't even want a Herbert. I've been very sad by the amount of offers I've gotten for him.
Give him the pass.
I'll wait.
Hey, you said you were drinking a pitcher of margaritas and wanted an offer, so I sent you an offer. Wasn't a good one, but I sent you an offer.
I honestly don't even remember that one. I don't remember any of those, to be real.
Well, then you were drunk enough to accept it.
Should we get on to the North?
Yes.
Fine.
Get us back on track here, RJ.
All right. So let's talk about the North. Should we start with ye old Kamish's team, the Green Bay Packers?
Why not?
So the it's been a tough couple of months here for Jeremy. First was the Cooper Cup injury. Then Lamar goes down at exactly the wrong time. Then Gino's still playing while the backup plans that Jeremy have fall through. So what looked like an unstoppable juggernaut, especially after his deadline deal, everything just kind of falls apart. But some of the pieces are definitely still there, and he's still the lead dog in the division, even though he missed out on the proper trade extension of Julian Love after he made the deal. That said, he's got a lot of options to break some things down and sort of push some things to later and kind of refill the war chest. I think the area to focus is probably running back first. All those guys have very situational value right now, and if you can get someone to pay up for Henry or get the right deal back for Miles or Jamal, I think he traded a future first for him, and could probably get similar for him right now. And getting a 200-point season and getting the same kind of investment back you put in is really the definition of a win at the running back position. And then the other piece is what could he be doing with his front four? Because that was, especially the end, was kind of his weak spot there. But that's always a tough thing to try and add anyway. So, again, lots of things to talk about moving here. So I'll let you guys dive into it.
I was gonna say, I don't think it would be unreasonable to move Jordan Love and maybe for a lesser quarterback and something else right now before we know what he is. That would be interesting to see. Like, you already know Rodgers is probably going to play somewhere else next year, so you know he's going to play next year. So now you just have to find somebody else that's young, that like you at least know what they are, and if you can get that player and something else, why not do it? I'll let everybody else. There's plenty of other things to talk about, so I'll let everybody pick something else out before I say something else.
I do love that he turned Lamar into 2 starting quarterbacks. But interestingly here, I think the move here is to do nothing. Like, just use
That's not fun.
Well, no. I mean, like,
move into this guy.
Build your bets. Like, the only piece you have here is like that you would want to focus on is move Love or Rodgers. Pick one and move off, because you don't need 2 quarterbacks. But like he's just like that one team that has, like, he doesn't need to worry about anything except for filling out his depth, right? Like,
his defense is essentially gone.
Well, I mean, do you tear down Kelsey for a lesser tight end and, like, IDP pieces to do that? You could.
No. You could just move Hassan Reddick for a defensive end and then go find another linebacker in free agency.
Actually, right here, you move Alan Lazard hands on a new team.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Because if he goes to a terrible situation, you cash out early.
Yeah.
He's just in that horrible situation where it looks like he needs to move offense for defense that no one ever wants to be in.
Yeah, but he's not going to do that.
Yeah, so if you're in that situation, you move your valuable defense for other positions.
Right.
And then you just go by the easier positions.
Right.
Is it possible that Reddick would move to D end?
No.
No? Okay.
They're 4-3.
Right, so then why wouldn't he be a D end?
Because he's a 4-3 linebacker.
He's a pass rushing specialist.
Yeah, he's a pass rusher.
He is a pass. If I'm not mistaken, he's been a linebacker the whole time, right?
It's weird because Philly
the
plays
Cardinals
the
were a
4-3
3-4.
wide. It's the formation. They play the 4-3 wide. And when you play that 4-3 wide, that outside designated rusher, it's hard to decipher whether they're a 3-4 edge or a 4-3 edge. Which,
Yeah,
if you
I-
look at him, he looks like a 3-4 linebacker, but in their scheme, he is more designated as a defensive end. So it's honestly, he's a coin flip any year you go into what he would be.
because I know when he was on Chargers, he was a defensive end.
Right.
Because
Yeah, that's
Carolina, he was a
Right.
4-3 always. It's just the scheme of Philly and how they align their D line is a little different, which is why it makes it more complicated.
So he's not even guaranteed to have Reddick next year. He's gonna have to
No.
tag him.
He doesn't have the money, so that's the other issue.
Yeah.
Like he's got him and he's got Ward and he's got all these people, but even with the cap space going up, he just tagged Devontae, and anyone can run up Devontae's number. And there's he's just really strapped for cap, and to keep a lot of these 1-year guys is just unrealistic.
Yeah, I feel like he's set up his roster to, like, he has two options. He can try and run it back and hope his offense is just powerful enough to drag a defense through the playoffs, or he needs to overhaul this entire roster.
Well, then
Everyone's kind of old.
Yeah, it's not a horrible idea because when you have Devontae Adams and Travis Kelce and Derrick Henry as 3-year headliners, it's probably not a bad idea to start.
So
Yeah, it would be a last-ditch effort to win and then rebuild with whatever he can the year after, or move pieces now. But luckily, he has plenty of time because he has no competition in this division.
Nope. None.
Just as the fun thing, if Rodgers does land in Vegas, you would have the stack with Adams
Yeah.
and Rodgers.
Just can't quit him.
Assuming he can keep Adams, but yeah.
well, Mike, what are you gonna do to be that competition next year?
Yeah, Mike.
He's gonna bid Devontae up to what, 33 million, and then he can't afford him.
Excellent. I like it.
Mike can't afford it either.
I don't think Mike needs to worry about wide receiver.
Okay, I can't
No,
afford
no,
anything.
No. Mike,
That might be what Chris has been looking his chops at. He's been very intent on having a lot of money going into the off season here.
So my one suggestion for Vikings, if you can't already tell, we're moving on to that. Would be sell some of those linebackers before everybody realizes that they're plug and play.
But for the Packers?
No, for the Vikings.
Oh.
we're on the
Okay.
Vikings.
Gotcha.
I would try to get rid of like Bobby O. I'd try to get rid of Dre Greenlaw. I'd try to get rid of Isaiah Simmons. They're all fantastic talents, but they all are on teams where just put somebody else there and they'll do the same thing.
And Simmons, you always have the issue of him actually being swapped to safety, and they did use him more last year at safety than they had prior.
Yeah.
So there's always
Who
the
kn-
chance
who
that
knows
they do
what their new
go
coach
away
is
from
gonna
him
do.
even more.
Simmons is the lesser of the three on the get rid of him type of thing. But I think we've seen that but San Francisco can find another linebacker, and Indy is just like a linebacker factory.
Well, the good
Yeah,
thing for
their
Greenlaw though is
contracts-
the other guy is up this year though, right?
Aziz or yeah.
I can't
Al-Shazir.
remember his name. Yeah, but his deal's up. So
Yeah, I think they're both fantastic players, and they'll probably still be productive. But I'm just talking about Mike's team. Mike's usually a year ahead of them, so that's the only thing that I can say.
I just think Okariki's got that fantastic contract though, doesn't he? Isn't he like $4 million?
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
And they're on their
that makes it
second
hard.
deal, so
That makes it hard to get rid of him.
Yeah. And
I don't-
Greenlaw's 2.2.
The only thing with Bobby is Bobby's been fantastic. Like this year with Shaquille or Darius, whatever the hell he wants to be called, with him being out so long, Bobby looks so great. I think that they have no choice but to really keep him, because if anything happened more long term,
But
They're
Zaire
just-
Franklin looked fine too.
yeah.
Well, the nice part here
I
is
think they're both free agents, for what it's worth.
the nice part for Mike is I know it's not like they're not heavily viewed positions in a positive light, but I mean he has 3 stud safeties and 3 stud corners, and has no worries about any of that there. And he could move
And 3 stud defensive tackles.
Yeah, and I was getting to Aaron Donald, but him renegotiated is great. If he doesn't return to Aaron Donald form, that's okay because he's not paying him $36 million. This might be a situation where you definitely. I mean, yeah, I agree with RJ. Tear down your linebacker. You got to get a quarterback that's not Zach Wilson. You know, you got
Terrible idea.
I don't know about that one.
You know, I mean, it's just a matter of what do you do. Like, I'm assuming you're going to tag Gesicki in some capacity. You know, but
why? We don't even know where he's going to go, and he's not going to re-sign with Miami.
He's definitely not signing in Miami. I agree.
Tight end is difficult, and when you have one, you have one.
And then he goes on and becomes another Jimmy Graham.
I don't know.
I've never been on board the Gesicki train. I've never really understood it.
But,
I think Mike he just needs to get a quarterback other than Zach Wilson. I think his roster is pretty good across the board. He's got depth. He's got star pieces. Yeah, he could maybe move off a linebacker, take a downgrade there to increase, maybe get another running back in the room. But like, I think his roster is a lot stronger than you guys are giving him credit for.
Oh, I'm not disrespecting it by any means. I'm just I'm trying to find something that would be rational to like get rid of.
Well, if we're talking rational moves, then please, exit stage right.
Right.
All right. Well, then
I see no reason why we couldn't do a Josh Allen for Josh Allen trade because Giants all you want is a Josh Allen on your team, right? Doesn't matter which one.
No.
Giants only wants one thing, and it's fucking disgusting. Gabe Davis.
There we go.
No,
Honestly, you would probably think you'd want to take Zay Jones, package him with something to get a slightly better receiver. Because as good as Zay was and as good as Zay looked this year, you got Calvin coming into the building next year. And you got Calvin and Kirk and Zay. That's a lot of mouths to feed, especially if they keep Ingram around.
I like all 3 of them next year.
Yeah, they're all good. But
Mike's going to do what he does, and he's going to time it perfectly, and he's going to get some sucker to give him like some huge deal.
That's exactly.
Hold on, you mean like I timed it perfectly and I traded for Joe Mixon the day before he almost got arrested?
Should have waited till the day he got arrested. Might have even better.
Yeah, in hindsight, that would have been fantastic. Anyways, all right, should we talk about the Bears?
Let's do it.
All right, just made some moves. We'll go through the trades after we're said and done with this. But
what is a receiver?
I mean, a healthy receiver or
a good one. Good and healthy, because hasn't played in essentially now 3 years. Like, I know he played 4 or 5 games, but 4 or 5 games in 3 years isn't worth the contract, the salary, or anything.
I think fondly of him. Like, I still think he will come back and be productive.
He's going to be 30 in a month here.
It's just his value, though. Like, it's like if you have him, congrats, you have him. But beyond that, it's like the amount of buyers versus sellers is completely lopsided to where there's not a lot of value there.
That's a fair statement.
And even if he comes back and does anything, we've seen him came back for 4 games and missed more. Like, you're stuck with that contract and you're stuck with him. There's not a lot of buyers. And even if you can't get someone to buy, they're never going to give you what you want.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely fair.
And then Claypool isn't great, and he's on a shitty team. And Mecole Hardman at $15 million is pretty stupid.
And we don't know that he'll be back with the Chiefs, right? He's a free agent.
Free agent. No, they won't pay him.
I think everybody on that team except for Sky Moore is a free agent.
Tony's not.
And even at that, his running backs, J.D. McKissick, I'm pretty sure is either up or can be easily opted out of. Kareem Hunt, his contract is up. And I don't know what's going on in Green Bay, but I see them drafting another running back. because I don't think they cared much for Kylan Hill and these other guys that keep picking up. So someone else will be there.
I know it's a little bit off topic here, but I could see Hunt going back to Kansas City. Like, it could be a very interesting fit to go back there.
I think. I mean, they cut him pretty quickly after his issue. I would be surprised if he landed back there.
Well, that was right after who's their GM? Went on to Cleveland afterwards. Was with Cleveland, drafted Baker.
Dorsey,
and everyone. Right? So they knew he had problems coming out of college, and Dorsey was pretty much the one who put him in the, hey man, we'll vouch for him, we'll keep him under wraps, yada yada, and pretty much is a one strike policy. And as soon as he was gone, there was no one in his corner. And then it worked out pretty well for him when he moved to Cleveland.
Yeah, I think just looking at this, I mean, the piece you're going to want to focus on moving here is Ogba, right? Like, he's got enough potential left without, damaging his credibility as a player. I think that he's probably the piece you're going to want to try and move off of.
Yeah, but you're going to get pennies for him because he's $17.5 million and did nothing.
Well, he was also injured.
I think you move Ogba like once free agency starts and people see like, oh my god, this crap DN that I was hoping was a depth piece is going to be like 8-9 million, and like, all right, well, okay, I'll go buy Ogba instead.
Right, Denzel Perryman's $25 million. Yeah, can get for 17.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's right now. I don't think you'd get anything for him.
I agree. Yeah, it's going to be a timing thing.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins is an interesting move. To actually renegotiate him and add 2 years to that deal, I'm kind of surprised by it. I kind of feel like I might have wanted to just pay him the higher salary to keep him on the short deal.
I'm kind of surprised he went and got Josh Uche and hasn't tagged him or traded him yet. He's just sitting there.
He might be trying to move him again before making tag decisions.
And then Jonathan Cooper would probably be a good person to trade to, because he's just going to start seeing probably fewer and fewer pass rush snaps as that linebacking core gets healthy and they get those edge guys in there and they draft some true edges.
I'd be interested to see if he could turn Cousins into something else.
I'm sure he could. Like somewhere, like at least along the way, right? Like if somebody's just a quarterback away.
Well, no, just more as we figure out quarterbacks that are going to have starting jobs next year. Maybe trade him for somebody that's like perceived as a bridge, and then something else, and then you're off of that big contract. You don't have to worry about what the next 3 years of that contract are, and you're onto something else that's productive for this year, and maybe you get something else that's better long term.
I mean, this is like a potential like Zach Wilson for Kirk. I would like Kirk a lot better for Mike.
Yeah, something like that.
So yeah, I think I've attempted to be like that, but I think he's aiming high.
As he should right now, because he's one of the few safe quarterbacks.
Yeah.
The question
that's why I say as we progress and more jobs get figured out in the off season, and like the quarterback, like a lot of them, hype builds up and the just perceived value of them starts to level out.
Yeah,
because right now there's like 10 of them that just have insane value because they're going to have a job next year.
Mm-hmm.
So again,
no one's replacing Herbert, guys.
Well, he's one of them that has, I don't want to call it inflated, but like a ridiculous value right now because everybody else is kind of a little bit cloudier situation, so they're a little bit less valuable.
Yeah. I think his thing, he has also like no picks now.
He literally just traded.
He just played them.
He has a third left, and so like just looking at this roster, and he's got 20 mil in space or maybe a little bit more with some of the 1 year contracts, like 25 mil in space for the offseason shenanigans. Like,
Well,
how is
go
he
buy
gonna
a tight end?
how is he gonna build? Yeah,
A lot of his roster's old too. His entire D end room is pretty old and not in a great situation. Lawson and his contract and the rotation that they're doing in New York.
Yeah,
Like
but
obviously the $1 million in this league is good, but outside of that, his IRL situation isn't great.
they're proven players that can turn it on. So like, sure they're not the most optimal, but if he's just gonna run with this, you pick up a tight end with that third, and then you buy more depth in the
Yeah, but
free
as a
agency.
team that has literally 1 draft pick in the next 2 years, this is a team that just needs to really be just selling at the right time because there's no youth on that team. I don't
Yeah.
honestly know if there's a player on that team I could honestly say starts in like 4 years for anyone.
Yeah,
Except for maybe Zaven Collins.
yeah.
That's a linebacker. That's not very exciting.
I think he's looking to make the playoffs and compete this year, not in a few years.
Yeah, I think like he's gonna run this team next year, and he doesn't have any 24 picks, so he's fine with being competitive. But I see this as a full teardown after next season.
Sure.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. He does not control his 24. So again, it's you look at this team as it is, and again, I don't disagree with what James is saying. Then you kind of look at it from a different angle and say, is Cousins the best quarterback? No. But is he stable? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Dillon and Hunt, ideal running backs? No, but you start one on a regular basis and the other might be a flex. Like, you can kind of almost talk yourself into this being a 200-point per week team.
Yep.
But then you look at it in the NFC North and you say, you're getting third at best.
Right. So again, that's 2 wins versus Lions, probably. He might pick up a cheap one against me or Jeremy. And he's playing a third place schedule, and considering the way that our league likes to tank, like, he could keep the team as is and probably still get to 6 or 7 wins. That's not where you want to be, but when you don't control your first and the teams that control it, I wouldn't necessarily ask for anything back off of his roster outside of maybe Kirk for his first next year. And again, I don't know if that's enough. So if you don't control it and you can't acquire your picks back, a team like this that you fill in with a couple of wide receiver 4s and returners and stuff like that could potentially roll off a big week for you. You see if you can get to 7 wins, and then next year, like you said, you blow it up next offseason.
Yeah. It's going to be fun to watch him do what he does.
It is true. All right. Last, and maybe least, sorry. The Lions. Look, I will say I came out during the draft show and said that I loved how the draft went for him. Like that he got, London was my favorite receiver, but I think he's performed quite well. Love that he was able to get Malik at 18. Thought he was really building something for the future. And at the end of the day, it seems like it's just another year in the cycle here for him. Malik does not look like he is a quarterback of anybody's future. London looked good. He just needs to continue to build off of the year. Again, Palmer, I think, showed well. Interested to see, especially with Keenan potentially getting cut, what his future looks like there. And then tight end room, again, with Ever potentially getting cut, what does that do for Parham's value or things like that? So he's got a path on offense for a couple of things. He's definitely going to have to spend his pick on a quarterback if he can. That's a little bit better than Malik, but still running back, tight end, and then a lot of defensive positions need to be filled out. So you almost wonder if this is a trade down or break some of these pieces down a little bit so you can get a few more picks and get yourself a little bit more depth. But outside of really the receivers and a couple of defensive bright spots, there's not a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, this is a team that I would say just hold.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really
Honest-
get rid of anything. Pick up, like, try to do some like trades maybe, and like pick up some more picks by like trading down. But other than that, pick some guys. You're not going to be good this year, but just, you know, next year, figure it out.
Fixture
Yeah, the one thing for him, like he doesn't have a lot of extra capital in 24. I don't think he's just like the 23 draft away. So
Right.
like maybe he trades down and adds a 24 first or something, just to help build the war chest here. But like I mean I like a lot of the progress he's made on the roster. I just think there's more to be done. It's a long-term process.
Yeah. I mean, he's got 3, 12, and 25 this year. So he's going to fix his mistake off Willis, and then he's going to probably do BPA for the rest of it. He has 3 picks in literally every round as well, which I find very fun. But yeah, I mean, just keep building. That's all you can do here. Just keep building, and it's going to be 2 to 3 years, depending on how quickly you are willing to move and do things. Yeah, I mean,
He's been patient. I feel like he's got the good vision for the team. Like he knows it's not going to be turned around this year, and is doing the right long-term plays.
yeah. I mean, he's not going to move his pick next year for anything cheap. It's going to be a top 5 to 8 pick, somewhere in there, depending on how many teams decide to tear it down. But yeah, I mean, stay the course. That's all you can really do here.
I honestly feel he's just gonna bust that QB at 3 again.
Because you don't like the whole class.
Oh man, last year when we were doing the draft, I kept making jokes in the chat about, oh man, no one trade up and get Malik Willis. And then I'm sitting there at 20. I'm like, oh my, if he falls to me, I'm gonna take him, guys. And I was very happy when he got drafted and just let other players slide to me. So,
I mean, that might be a good option for Herbert.
yeah. But
There you go.
the
103 for Herbert. Send it in.
No, the 103 is too risky for me this year. Like if you're just talking about the third QB in this class, it's a risky business, man.
112 it is then.
That's way worse.
So do we want to talk trades that happened
Let's do it.
over
Let's
the past
do it.
2 weeks?
All right, let's pull those up.
Has it been 2 weeks?
Yeah, I got it on 13 days.
Yeah. So let's see. That would be what, that Tuesday or
The Lions Dolphins trade.
yeah. Okay, that's what I figured as well. Anyways, this was interesting because it's not a huge jump up in draft capital, but a good amount of drop happening there. I think it's about a 4-pick improvement to go from Giants to me
4 or 5 picks, yeah.
in the third. So
All 1-year deals, just a little bit of flexibility, which I get it. And if you're in a situation like I'm not looking at either team's picks, but maybe Dolphins doesn't have a worse pick, so he's just like, I'll do this pick swap in this round.
Well, not even that. Like, normally you do a cap dump for a reason, and he didn't do anything. Like, he just got rid of the players.
Yeah, but just the comfort of being able to send out offers that don't have a whole bunch of junk added to them.
Yeah, I guess so.
all right,
Very,
then,
very easy cap dump. I haven't seen this one before.
yeah, Jags, Browns, Seiler for Deshaun Elliott in a third. Elliott's on a nice little contract here. I'm not sure if he's going to get extended or not. But yeah, at $500,000, that's not a bad place to be. The question is, what does the Detroit starting safety situation look like next year? But still, Seiler pretty cheap for 150 point D end, so not bad at all.
Solid pickup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was after him for a while.
Yeah. Very underrated.
Might have a position change, but solid player.
Chiefs giving Tennessee's fourth and their second next year for Randy Gregory and Marlon Humphrey. Marlon is what? Oh, he's on through man. I thought he was more expensive than that. But yeah, picking up a corner, woohoo! But Randy Gregory could find himself in a decent position. I think he's still signed in Denver for next year.
Lots
I think,
of
right?
money.
He
Lots of money in
He
Denver.
has a huge deal.
He's got a big contract.
They believe in him.
Well, I mean, he's only a $600,000 contract here, so that could end up being very nice, just depending on what they want to be. Then we've got Vikings and Eagles making the swap. I upgrade RJ's second rounder with Khalil Mack to pick up Aaron Donald. Khalil's an older linebacker, but very productive for the start of last year. Donald, we'll see how many more years he plays in a less sexy position, but when he's on, he's on.
Yeah, just team building wise, I think that you filled a need by getting Aaron Donald you didn't have with Mac.
Oh, man. Let's see. Then moving on up, Bears trading the Ravens first for Kamara and a third. So Falcons starting to try and sell off some of these pieces he doesn't want to pay. I don't hate it, but I don't really like it. I think that's still pretty cheap for Kamara, despite that cost. Now, granted, he could end up in jail, and who knows at that point. But I think that's probably on the cheap side of that value.
Yeah, I think that overall, fine. Kamara's worth a first, absolutely. Bears' path for next year did not make sense for this. Being competitive and paying for a running back that's not going to play didn't make sense.
Just wait a few more seconds and you'll be able to talk about a trade that makes even less sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's me giving up Damian Harris and Najee Harris for CEH and Joe Mixon. Again, I think I'll let you guys tear me apart for this one. No need to defend myself.
I was actually making more of a comment on the other trade that'll be coming up in a minute.
Bears Browns.
I applaud you on getting rid of Damian Harris.
Yeah. At the same time, I despise that you took on Clyde. But no, I think Mixon still has a job. They've already come out and said that it was false identification or whatever it was, and blah blah blah. But he's not going to be a Bengal. They can't afford him anymore. But where he lands, I don't know. But I still like it, overall.
Yeah, more to be seen there. Then Robert Woods for Morgan Fox and a third. I think Woods has the potential to be a productive receiver, but I don't know what the heck's going to happen to that quarterback situation there in Tennessee. So considering he had a mediocre year at best this year, except for the few times he got 7 or more targets, which was, I think, 3 times. It's tough to actually do something with that.
Well, he'll be somewhere new next year too. Yeah. They saved $12 million and letting him go. So.
Yep. Then Giants giving up Kenneth Gainwell for Trayvon Walker and Albert O. At first I kind of recoiled at the saying, wow, I don't know about that. But Gainwell at his cost, Walker likely moving to linebacker next year. And again, it's looking like they want to use Gainwell in a committee, and he definitely got some high leverage touches here in the playoffs. Not the worst thing. And then Alberto is a bit of a disappointment based off of the opportunity he had. That said, Sean Payton's there, so everyone's got the chance to turn around. So I see this swinging either direction, but I think I'd rather have the pieces that Giants is getting.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to, get the first overall pick in a trade. the actual NFL draft 1 year afterwards, and this kind of deal. And like even if he goes to linebacker, so
Yep.
it's me.
All right. Then we've got Ogbonia for Aguero for Chandler Jones. Got younger, maybe less productive. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this one. I think honestly, this one is just preference. You know, do you want to move off of Chandler Jones, who's been consistent, and take on the potential, or do you want the reverse side of it? I think it's fine for both sides, given what they're trying to do.
It's more about just not being stuck with the Chandler Jones contract. Because Aquara,
It's only a $2 million difference.
yeah, but he's also not going to be on Houston next year. He only signed a 1-year deal last offseason.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you don't really know where he's going to land, but like how productive is Chandler Jones going to be at this point? And to even save $2 million in a year, it's reasonable.
Yeah.
I move a corner, rookie corner. Elam looks like he was getting a little bit more starting or more snaps near the end of the year. That said, definitely he seemed like he got injured 3 or 4 times throughout the year. Van Ginkel's not, a world beater, but I'll take the rotational linebacker for the corner with 4 years left on his contract.
Man, that whole Buffalo secondary got beat to shit this year.
Yep.
Van Ginkel lost a lot of his, not a lot, a portion of his role to like Duke Riley and players like that throughout the season. But I think he's there next year, so he'll probably get some of that back.
We'll see. Again, he's rotational, but again, I'll take the potential upside there at a higher leverage position. Now, Kamara and Thomas. Again, this is kind of an incomplete. Thomas restructured his real life contract so that the Saints basically have to cut him or pay him $35 million. So he's probably getting cut. But so a lot of this is going to be based off of where he lands and kind of who he lands with.
Can't wait until he kills CD Lamb's value.
I mean, the other aspect here is if they've got to cut Everett and Allen, and Thomas wants to redeem himself, that's a ready-made role for him to step into if he's willing to sign kind of a prove-it deal. But
Man, if that happened though, that'd be so much fun. I'm just saying, like MT, CD Lamb, and AJ Brown are like 3 of the best slant runners in the league.
Yeah.
But just to have MT and CD on the same team, be able to have both of them run slants on either side, that'd be fun to watch.
Well, there's still Dak, so that's an issue.
Yeah.
Then there's again, gotta love the Patriots because he's nothing. He's all about the content.
We appreciate him.
Trades the 101 and plus, and I think the 231 to get Herbert. Then trades Herbert for George Pickens, Christian Harris, Carolina's 23 first, which I think is the 118,
Yeah, it is.
and the Kansas City third in 2024. So gave up 101 and 231 to get it. Gets back 118, a late first this year, probably a mid first or early first. I don't want to say early first, but a strong pick in value, and then a third. So I'd say it's probably equivalent to what he paid for it, if not maybe a little bit more. But interesting move for him. Just continue to cycle these things.
Solid trade.
It drives me nuts. Drives me
So this next one, I'm gonna let somebody else break down the next one here because I'm not quite sure what to think of it, and the more I look at it, the more confused I get.
So it's Chiefs giving up a second, a fourth, and a fourth for Pierre Strong, Kirby Joseph, and 3 fifths.
Yeah.
It locks up essentially all the running backs that are on contracts and in New England for next year.
Yeah, he's given a second for Pierre Strong, who's probably going to be the RB2.
Yeah,
then
I really liked
just-
Pierre. I drafted him.
turn fives into fours and get Kirby Joseph, which he might be a starter, he might not, because they also have like an embarrassment of riches at safety in Detroit.
He was trying to sell me on the Travis Jones side because he is technically going.
Travis Jones is a nose and worth nothing.
Yes.
I mean, points are points, right? Technically, blah blah blah, whatever.
The only points Justice Hill got before this year were tackles on special teams.
Oh no, Justice Hill is a cap dump, as is Jerry Jacobs. Travis Jones is just a 4-year rookie.
Yeah, he's not gonna have anything though. I don't know. Nose tackles to me in this league are just essentially you have them for 3 to 5 points as a baseline for bye weeks. Other than that, they're trash.
Tell us how you really feel.
Well,
He's
if
very
you
long.
can't get me sacks, if you can't get me a lot of tackles, if you're not a 4-3 D tackle, if you're a 3-4 nose, there's not a lot of value in you unless you're a special one.
He's
Like,
worth holding on to and like having a roster spot for the time being.
Yeah,
And
but he's not
he's
nothing
able
more
to be
than that.
taxied. I can trade him later. We'll
Yep.
see what happens with it. But yeah, this was just me trying to acquire more picks for next year.
And the second was good though.
All right. And then the most recent trade again, Gabo's Patriots. If nothing else, he's going to keep things moving. I think I got more than this from him for Dylan.
Oh no, you did. You got a first and a second, and then he gave a second just for the safety that's in that deal. So Pats being Pats.
Still got a first out of it.
So
But you
If
gave
nothing
up
else,
a
he's gonna
first
keep
and
moving
2
forward.
seconds for a first and a third, and
Yeah.
no football's been played. So I don't understand how people lose value.
Sometimes that happens.
Well, was Chargers first earlier than mine? I can't remember. Maybe by 1 or 2.
Yeah, but a whole second for 2 spots, and
Right.
you're not on the clock.
Hey,
Lot of value
those 2
difference.
spots are really important.
Yeah, and AJ Dillon was like a week older. And in running with running backs, that's a lot.
You know what it is? There's an Instagram. AJ Dillon came out. He ate 2 cheeseburgers, and he was hanging out with Eddie Lacy.
Oh no, Quadzilla! No, why? All right, so hour and 22 minutes. As we said, we finished. Hope this leads to some more trades. I think we're definitely up the last couple of weeks since we started doing this. So I love the content. We'll meet again next week. I think it'll be just before rollover, just to go through a couple of things that teams should be thinking about before we get shut down and get ready for the new season and the new website. So happy trading, get in where you can, because we're going to roll over and have to do this all over again on a new website, and we'll have to restart the count for who's got the most trades. So get your trades in to choose your numbers right now and get ready to let the new season begin and the real season, the trade season.